Hey, this is Darren from Property Prosperity. Tonight I thought I'd have a little bit more of a chat about the bidding at auction. I suppose you're probably aware of my thoughts of auctions. I don't necessarily think it's the best way to try and sell a house, but to buy a house definitely it presents some really good opportunities to get a house at a discounted price. Obviously, I've explained before my opinion of auction, where generally it's it is the easiest way to try and sell a house as far as the agent's concerned, because they don't necessarily have to market the property that well, and they don't have to negotiate on the property that well, because they can basically outsource that and let the auction process take care of itself. Whereas if you're looking at sort of allowing the people to get in there and offer the highest price, I suppose my concern about the auction process is it's a very open process, which is a really good thing as far as the purchaser goes. You know exactly what other people are bidding. Whereas when prices, hey Darren, thanks for joining. When a property's on the market via sale by negotiation, they call it. Just when it's on the market, they got a price on there, and you go and they say 450 or whatever. The unfortunate thing for that, when you go out and buying a property, you don't actually know what other people are offering, and so the danger for that, people might be offering at 420, or they might be offering at 470, and you've got to try and take it to a punt of finding out. The danger is that the agent may not necessarily be honest with you, so you might say, hey, have you got any other offers? And they may say yes, when maybe they don't. And then secondly, they go, no, we've got, it's around the asking price, or it's more than the asking price. You don't necessarily know whether the other offers are at 420, and you've made, because the agent's told you the price is going to be selling it at the asking price or more, and the only other bid that's at 420, then you've come in at 450 or 455 or 470 or whatever, because the agent's pushed you up to that sort of price because your expectations are people are going to offer more. And the thing is, at the end of the day, what a property's worth is what you think it's worth. So if you think the property is nicer than someone else does, then you're willing to pay more for it, essentially. So let's say it's on the market at 450 and you think it's worth 470, you'll put in an offer at 470 unless you know any differently. And likewise, someone else that doesn't see the value that you see in the property, they might put an offer at 420. The difficulty for you is you're putting in offers, you don't know the other person's put an offer at 420. So I think that's the really cool thing about auctions. You can go to an auction, stand around, wait for, generally you'll find no one wants to put in a bid, but eventually we'll get one offer, one bid that'll come in at 350, and who knows, the bidding will bid, work its way up, and the bidding might stop at 420. You come in there and put your offer at your bid in at 421. You bought the property at 421, even though you're willing to pay 470. So it's a really great opportunity to get a property at a bargain basement price. The good thing about it too is a lot of people are really intimidated by auctions, so they're a bit scared of the whole auction process. So if you just understand auctions, my advice to you is go to a few auctions before you actually go there when you're putting the money on the market. So to go to auctions of properties you're not even slightly interested in. So you're definitely not going to get caught up in the whole excitement of it and buy a property. But just rock up and have a look at how the auction process works. The cool thing is when you actually get to the point of going to a property you actually do want to purchase, you'll be relaxed about the whole process. You won't be nervous about it. Whereas, to be honest, probably most people are going to be really nervous about it. It is an intimidating thing. People are a bit scared of the process. Either probably people won't turn up in the first place, or they might be, subject to finance, or subject to the sale of house, or subject to some other conditions. So you might find that there might be 10 people who want to buy the property, but you're the only one that turns up to auction because you're the only one confident enough to go to the auction, or you're the only one that's willing to go cash unconditional. So it really gives you a great opportunity, excludes a whole pile of people from the auction process, which allows, at the end of the day, the less people that want to buy it, the more chance you've got of trying to get the property at a bargain basement price, essentially. So, and then the other thing about auctions is, what used to happen in the past is agents used to create that incentive for people to start bidding. I don't know if you've ever been to an auction before, but quite often they say, who would like to bid? And then usually no one wants to bid first. Everyone wants to sit back and see what happens. And so what they used to do in the past is agents used to come in and say, hey, I've got a bid over there and I've got a bid over here. And if you're not really clued up to this whole process, you might actually think there wasn't a real bid over there, or over there. And there might just be the tree, or it might be the car over in the backyard, or it might be the dog barking. It could be anything, essentially. And so they were just taking bids from anywhere, trying to build up the momentum and build up the price that the property's going to sell for. So because that become a pretty common practice, and because a lot of people got angry about that process because it's obviously not very ethical to do something like that, then the government actually brought in a rule saying you couldn't do that, and they legislated now that if they want to do something which they call dummy bids, so fake bidding essentially, and so they actually brought a rule to allow agents to put in 3 fake bids, which seems a bit nuts if you imagine. If you It was just like making up a story of these random people that aren't real people want to put in bids. So what they did is they made it a rule. They said you can have fake bids, but you've got to tell everybody it's a fake bid, which again seems totally nuts. It's just an example of, you know, trying to regulate stupidity at the end of the day, and you can't really regulate something like that. If people you know, if agents are going to do something dodgy, then they're going to do something dodgy anyway. And so, you know, the key is you've got to go in there informed and educated and know exactly the process involved, you know, because at the end of the day, you know, this rule, and this is how crazy it is, instead of calling it a fake bid or a dummy bid, they call it a vendor bid. So essentially, this is the person that owns the property is allowed to make bids for the property, which doesn't make any sense, because why would they want to buy their own property? Because that's obviously the reason they put it on the market and spend all this money on marketing and spend all this cash on the real estate agent, is for the agent to sell it to somebody else. So the logic behind it doesn't make any sense to me whatsoever. And the other crazy thing about it is, bear in mind, this is only in South Australia, so they're probably in other states, they're probably still doing dummy bids and having the dog barking as a bid and all the other sort of stuff. So just keep an eye out what it is in your state. But essentially in South Australia, you can put in 3 vendor bids, which means it's basically the owner is bidding on their own property for some crazy reason. The thing about vendor bids, they have to be less than the asking price, what's called the reserve price. So if you don't know much about how it works, the reserve price is the lowest price the owner is willing to accept. So sometimes when you go to an auction, you'll hear that the property has gone on the market. So you'll be there, they'll be bidding away, bid, and then suddenly they'll go, the property is on the market. Again, which is another thing that just seems nuts. Like, why the property's on the market? It was on the market before. That's why we come in the open inspection. That's why we're standing here bidding. But the reason they do that is because they're letting you know at that point in time. Let's say, you know, the owner hopes to get 450. You know, they said the lowest they're willing to accept is 430, and then the bidding starts at 350. So the bidding goes 350, and then 360, and 370, 380, 390. Hey Daniel, thanks for joining. And then gets up to 320, and then suddenly gets to 330, and then they go, the property is on the market, which essentially means it's telling everybody that's there the owners are willing to accept that price or more, essentially. The logic behind it, for as far as the auctioneer is concerned, is that means everyone knows it's going to be sold today because they know it's reached the minimum price the owner wants, and so they should try a bit harder, because all they have to do is get $1,000 more than that, and they're probably going to get it. And they hope then that'll create some incentive for people to start putting in more bids. The crazy thing is then, it's basically just told the market what price the owner wants for it. And so the reason why that's a bit crazy, because if it doesn't sell, or for some reason something happens, then essentially, you know, people know what price they could have bought it for, and then anything over that, they don't have to try much harder because they know the owner's willing to accept any price after that, and they're only competing against the few people they're competing against after that. So I don't know, my logic, it just seems a little bit crazy to have the whole you know, reserve price. And then the other thing on top of that is, after they had this reserve price, when we talked about these vendor bids, then basically the vendor bids have to be, legally, they have to be lower than the reserve price. So again, if you understand the process, then you can say, okay, well, property's on, you know, we're expecting to sell for 450, we've got a bid at 350, or we don't have any bids. Essentially, the agent will come in and say, okay, we've got a vendor bid at 350, and no one puts any other bids in. And then they go, we've got a vendor bid at 370, no one puts any more bids in. They've got a vendor bid at 400, no one puts any more bids in. They got a vendor bid at 420, no one puts any more bids in. And then they going off the market. And they'll take it off the market then, saying, hey, the property's been passed in. Then what they can do is they can sell it under auction conditions after that. So they won't approach everyone that's still around saying, hey, you've still got the opportunity to put in an offer. They'll call everyone around for the next few days. You can still buy the property. It will be under auction conditions, so it'll be cash unconditional and settling 30 days essentially. But we'll have an opportunity for you to still come in and buy the property. The cool thing about that is, if you're seeing that the vendor bids come in at 350, 370, 400, 420, or whatever they happen to be, if you know 420 was the last vendor bid, you know that was pretty close to where the owner's willing to accept. So all you have to do then, if it gets passed in, make sure your offer's around the 420 mark or just a bit more, and you know they're going to accept it. Whereas if you'd have thought it was worth 470, you don't have to offer 470 anymore, because the agent's already told you and the owner's already told you, hey, we're willing to accept, you know, pretty close to 420. So, you know, it's a really awesome opportunity to try and get a house at a bargain basement price. So rather than being afraid of auctions, I think, as a buyer, definitely it's definitely an appealing way to buy a house. Essentially, you just have to do it. Feel confident about the process. Don't be scared of it. But yeah, I'm in myself. I know I've bought some bargains by going through the auction process, and yeah. Again, if you're sort of swaying towards the auction process to sell, there's definitely way better ways to sell a house. If you still like the auction method, then I can give you some advice on ways to sell your house in a similar style to an auction, but without all those limitations of having an auction as well. So feel free to put a comment or send me a request through, and I'm happy to give you some tips on that as well. So just noticed here that Daniel has put in some comments. 3 vendor bids, agrees sounds dodgy. Obviously a case of enough money going to political parties from the industry to get this one up on both sides. So okay, so that's one person's thought. That does, it does seem a bit dodgy from the perspective, and the danger for me, especially for me as a real estate agent, is people don't trust real estate agents anyway. They think they're a bit dodgy. Then you bring on this whole auction process, which again doesn't seem to make sense for anybody. And then the government tries to come and legislate because they're concerned about, these dodgy practices of dummy bids and all that sort of stuff. By bringing in all these crazy rules, that actually makes the auction process even more dodgy, because then they bring in this dodgy vendor bid thing, which everyone's like, well, hang on, the auction process seems a bit dodgy. The dummy bids thing seems a bit dodgy. Don't even trust the agent in the first place. And now they bring in this rule where the owner can bid against themselves. So I don't know. It just doesn't seem to make any sense for me, and I don't know. I know generally if you talk to 95% of real estate agents, they're going to push you towards the whole auction process because obviously it works out the best for the agents. But yeah, definitely, I think it's not necessarily best for selling, but definitely if you understand how the process works and how it works, then you have the opportunity to buy some really bargain basement prices. So get out there if you're a buyer and don't be afraid of auctions and take advantage of it and use it to your own advantage. So hopefully you've liked what I had to say. If you have liked it, click on the like button. If you haven't liked it, then still click on the like button anyway, because I really appreciate it. And if you know someone that's thinking about putting their house in the market and they're going to go to auction, then please click on the share button. Hopefully they understand that, from a buyer's perspective, it's an awesome way to buy a house, not so much from the seller's perspective. And if you're out there and you're a buyer, or someone's looking at buying a property and they're a bit scared of the whole auction process, then click on the share button. Hopefully they'll get some benefit out of it, and they'll get out there and buy themselves a bargain too. If you've got something you'd like to talk about as far as, you've had experiences with auctions as well, good or bad, I love to hear about your feedback. And if you've got something you'd like me to talk about in a future episode, then click on the comment box and I'm happy to chat about it. Thanks guys, and we'll talk again soon. Bye.